Welcome to the Blue Room post-match reaction of Chelsea 1, Everton 0. Joining me, Warren here, is Pete McFarlane, and Dave Downey will be joining us shortly. Pete, let's get straight to it then. I felt that it was a typical Everton away at a quote-unquote big club performance. Very flat, felt very end of season. And I don't think that Everton really ever got a hold on the game or ever really produced anything that would cause Chelsea any threat. It was a disappointing one to come away with, to see that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think certainly first half. I think we looked pretty flat in the first half. I thought the second half we actually came out and had to go with them. Better had a good strike on goal. Um, I think one of the things that David Moyes will find out and will be deciding over these coming games. It's a good test for him to see where the squad's at as a whole. You can play with a little bit more freedom in theory, or the players should be able to play with a bit more freedom and maybe a little bit more confidence because we know we're safe. I don't think we saw much of that yesterday, but I think, as I say, all of this is important for Everton going forward. All of these games are important, not just in terms of financially, because of obviously every place in the league is worth so much, but also um, it's a great time for the manager to assess where we're at as a football club and where we're at as a squad. Certainly, again, the inefficiencies that we have up front in particular, I think that shone through yesterday. Felt for Beto because he didn't have much service. Um, don't think he was helped much by our attacking players, our other attacking players there to create chances for him. But at the same time, I think certainly up front is a position that we need to strengthen. Um, I mean, let's not take anything away from Chelsea. I know they haven't been on the best of form more recently, but that they seem to have gelled and clicked very well this season. So they are a good side. I think that we didn't disgrace ourselves. Again, it's a very narrow defeat. I'm not too despondent, to be honest with you. Isn't it nice though that we can come away from a game like that at this stage in the season and not have that feeling of absolute dread and
Mm.
looking over your shoulder and thinking, "Oh my God, the worst could happen." It was just a very end of season kind of game, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you mentioned there as well about the fact that it's a time for Everton to, or time for David Moyes, if you like, to see what he's got available. And I think it's fair to say he's probably got the most he can possibly get out of this squad at this stage of the season. He has guided us to a position of safety, which obviously, as you mentioned there, it's not got us looking over our shoulder or not got us feeling the dread that we've had sort of the last 3-4 years, whatever it is. But just before we go on to talk more about it and the goal in particular that Chelsea scored, I just want to ask you about the team selection, because after the game last week against Man City, obviously a lot of the chat has been around about the substitutions and his selections and who he brought on after James Tarkowski got injured. And we were provided with an opportunity to see Jake O'Brien at centre back and obviously Nathan Patterson coming in and slotting in at right back. What did you make, firstly, of the starting lineup when it came out? Were you happy with that? And also, what did you make of the two individuals I've just mentioned there, their performance in Jake O'Brien and Nathan Patterson?
Well, first of all, I mean, in terms of what I just said about David Moyes is in a position now where he can learn a lot about the squad that he's got. I think he learned very quickly that bringing Michael Keane on, um, the other week, I think David Moyes will have learned a lot from that in terms of who he can trust. I think when he was making that substitution last week, he probably looked at it and thought Michael Keane's got the experience. He can come on. He's played a lot of times in the Premier League. I'm sure he can come on and, help to take over that responsibility from James Tarkowski. But clearly, um, David Moyes thought otherwise when it came to yesterday's selection. And I think I was very impressed with Jake O'Brien. I think he looked really assured at the back, and if that's the type of performance that we're going to see from him going forward, I'm really impressed with that. I've been really impressed with him anyway at fullback since Moyes has come in. I think it's been great to see him get that long stretch of games, and I think he looked assured at centre half yesterday. I think Nathan Patterson as well, although some of his passing was a little bit loose, he underhit a few sort of things that could have been dangerous for us. But I think he did just fine. I think Patterson did just fine. And again, another player who hasn't really had a run on the side, mainly I'd say because of injuries, because of I think the injuries that he's had has hampered him massively since he's been at the club. But yeah, it was good to see him get a start, and as I say, I thought he did just fine while he was on the pitch. Nothing spectacular, not he wasn't like bombing on like a young Seamus Coleman and taking players on the outside and whipping great crosses into the box and being a threat. I think he just did okay. But yeah, as I say, at this stage of the season, we know where the deficiencies are in our squad, and I think it's very apparent. And again, I think that David Moyes will be learning so much week by week about the squad of players that he's got here.
I think overall we could probably agree, and I think many listeners will agree, that it was a relatively flat performance from Everton, especially that first half. However, I think talking about Jake O'Brien then slotting into that centre-back role, I agree with you. I thought he did excellent, and I thought his partner alongside with him was outstanding again, Jared Branthwaite. And I think what I'm buoyed by, especially if we can keep Jared Branthwaite, Pete, is that's got the makings of a real good centre-half partnership, hasn't it? I mean, they're both 6'4" plus, but very comfortable on the ball as well. They're not yard dogs, are they? They're not sort of your horrible, typical old school, 6'4" centre halves who, want to kick everything. They're very accomplished on the ball, but also they can defend properly as well. And I think anytime, there was a couple of instances where Chelsea, I think, were getting frustrated because they were trying to play forward quickly and it was getting intercepted quite quickly, whether that be in the air or on the ground. And I think regardless of the performance yesterday, we can look at them too if both of them do end up staying. Well, if Branthwaite ends up staying, and we've got a real positive there as a centre half partnership, haven't we? And I think that was a real plus point from yesterday. What do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely, and again, if you want to say to Jared Branthwaite and try and sell the vision of Everton Football Club to him, if you like, I personally think that Branthwaite should be staying at Everton, not just from an Evertonian point of view. I think it's best for his career to stay at Everton for at least one or two more seasons, because I just don't think. I think when you've seen what's happened to other younger players, certainly in his position, who've moved on too quickly, if you like, I think he's at a bit of a stage in his career now where he needs to be playing regular football. And I think that Everton's the right football club for him, and hopefully we can match his ambition, because obviously he's going to want to play in European football at some stage in his career. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But I do think that the potential there for a defensive partnership with Jake O'Brien is massive. Two very young centre halves. O'Brien in particular has hopefully got a long future at Everton Football Club, but I'd hope that Jared Branthwaite can be with him along the way as well.
Yeah, it's promising if we are able to keep them both together, because I think one of the, as I mentioned earlier, plus points from yesterday was their performance as a defensive pairing, but also as individuals as well. I thought Jared Branthwaite was just outstanding. And I remember a point, I think it was in the second half, when a very dangerous cross come in and he managed just to get his head to it and turn it away from danger, which was an unbelievable intervention from him. And I just thought, yeah, I think when he gets into his rhythm, Jared Branthwaite, he's class anyway, but when he's in the run of form he's being in at the moment, he just looks head and shoulders above everyone else on the pitch. So it was really pleasing to see. Just on the goal, then, Pete, I mean, I know Beto's got a lot of stick, and rightly so, because the ball's come into him. He's got dispossessed quite easily, I feel, as well. But I also felt that we were quite open, mentioning the aforementioned defensive partnership. And I think they've probably moved out of that position, set up, ready to, being able to expand and play from the back a little bit. And as it's happened, the ball's not stuck or it's not being held up and it's gone through. And Enzo Fernandez has played that ball forward to Jackson, who's a tidy finish, to be fair to him, in the bottom left-hand corner. And I don't know if you felt maybe Pickford could have done something better. I personally just think it was one of those efforts where it was a great shot and it was very accurate. But in the goal, it was a disappointing one to concede, wasn't it? It was one that I felt that it was unavoidable. It was like a bit of an unforced error. And I think they're the type of things, or that's the type of goal that you can see the deficiencies this squad does have in moments like that. And once we go 1-0 behind at a club like Chelsea and a team like Chelsea, where we've had an awful record. I mean, the stat is we haven't won there since 1994. Paul Ride, out of all people, the last person to score the winning goal for us there. It didn't bode well after that, did it? But it was a really disappointing goal to concede, wasn't it?
It was, and those are the types of chances you take, if you like, when you play the ball out from the back, especially when you've got a centre forward dropping deep, and taking a heavy touch. I always think that is always a dangerous thing to happen. It's almost like with your centre forward, sometimes you don't want them to get too deep and get involved, because they
Yeah.
can cause mayhem, and they can, and I think that's almost what happened yesterday. Um, yeah, I think I wasn't surprised to hear that Nicholas Jackson hadn't scored all year as well.
Yeah.
Hadn't scored in 2025 so far. I think his last goal was sometime in December. If I would have known that before the game, probably would have put me out on him to score. So it just seems to be what Everton do. But yeah, it is one of those things. I mean, when you look at it and look at the context of it, I think Jordan Pickford pulled off a number of really good saves as well before the goal. I think he did fine in the second half as well. But overall, I don't think that we were massively outplayed or massively under the cosh. And what it came down to was a bit of a mistake from Beto. But again, without digging Beto out, I think that's a position that we're going to have to
Mm.
look at in the summer and hopefully improve on. We need quality in this league. We need someone who's going to get us goals, but also who's going to offer more than that. Someone who's going to have a good first touch, someone who can get involved in the build up and not get bullied off the ball by someone who's probably about a foot shorter than him.
Yeah, I think I remember the lads talking in the week, both on Blue Monday and on the byline, just addressing sort of this issue about our failure to score, and we're amongst, I think, one of the lowest scorers. There's only a couple of teams. I haven't got the stat in front of me. You'll have to forgive me, people. And there's only one or two teams who scored less than us. We do compensate for that by having an outstanding defensive record, and I think we're fourth in the league or fifth again for goals conceded. Up there with one of the best. But it is that feeling, isn't it? Is that sort of familiar feeling that once we go behind, we're not necessarily sure how we're going to score. And I think that it was there for everyone to see again yesterday, our deficiencies going forward. And like you said, it's something that's definitely got to be addressed. And I think the frustrating thing for me was in the second half, we did have a spell of pressure where we looked like we could maybe push for an equaliser, but we just lack that killing instinct. And we've said this for a long time now. But I think you're right. I think that needs to be addressed. I think Moyes will certainly be looking to address that come the season, because it's far too many times that we're going to teams like Chelsea and just barely laying the glove on them, and that needs to change. But just going into that second half, he made a couple of changes. Iliman and Jai came off at half time for Alcaraz, and Alcaraz has been someone who's been much talked about this week about whether he's fancied by Moyes or whether it feels almost like from one point where it was someone who we were definitely going to sign, it feels a little bit 50-50 again at this moment in time. And Everton obviously cautious to start, and we've all heard about the clause in the contract or in the agreement with Flamenco that if he starts a certain amount of games, we have to buy him. And maybe that's a reason for him not starting as many as we maybe would have anticipated. But I thought when he come on, he brought an energy to the game. I think he kept the ball for us a bit better, and he certainly looked to play that forward pass a lot more than maybe we were seeing in the first half. Just on him as an individual, and both on yesterday's game and overall. If we talk about yesterday's game first, do you agree with the sentiment that I offered, that when he came on, he changed the game to a degree and certainly give us something a bit different?
I think so. Yeah, I think that he's a player. I mean, I personally wouldn't think twice about signing him. I wouldn't be messing around. I'd be trying to get that clause activated so we can get him signed as soon as possible. I think the thing that he does offer is that he can collect the ball from deep in midfield and carry the ball into dangerous areas. I think we don't have many players who can actually influence a game in that final third. I think he can be one of those players. It's a shame for me that he doesn't seem to have had a real chance to get a bit of a partnership going with Illiman and Dye as well, because I think that those two could work well. I think I've said this all along. It was a shame that when Alcaraz came in, that Ndiaye was out injured, but now that Ndiaye's back, it seems that Alcaraz isn't getting the sniff. So, or certainly isn't getting the start. So, yeah,
Mm.
it's an interesting one. I think with him in particular, I think you'll see the best of him when he's surrounded by players who are on the same wavelength as him. And I think Illiman and Ndiaye is a player who can complement him very well. But yeah, I think Alcaraz again, he's someone who will look to dictate play in that final third rather than being passive or passing the responsibility, which unfortunately so many of our players do. I think he will directly try and get involved with the play. He might lose the ball every now and again when he tries something, but do you know what? I'd rather players took the risk and tried to actually influence the game rather than, as I say, being passive in possession. Um, but yeah, I thought yeah, it's one of those things I don't understand. I don't know, obviously, what the issue might be in terms of why he isn't starting games. But yeah, I'm sure by the end of the season, hopefully, we'll have activated that clause and he'll be an Everton player next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, for me, watching him yesterday, it was one of those things where he was, look, just sorry, Dave Downey's just joined us as well on the call. Dave, I'm just talking about Charlie Alcaraz and his influence when he came on in that game yesterday, and me and Pete have just been saying about the fact that we think he has offered something a little bit different, and he certainly he made sort of a decent cameo when he did come on, and he offered something Everton a little bit different. One of the things I noticed with him was that there's been much talk about him. Moyes putting him in more of a wider role to accommodate, obviously, Decore playing more centrally in that number 10. But I felt when he come on, he was trying to find them pockets of space in the middle, and I thought we saw the best of him from doing that, didn't we? And that's definitely his best position going forward, isn't it?
I agree with you there, yeah. And do you know what? Each time I've seen him play, each time that I've seen him put on, because he hasn't, I didn't think he started perhaps one or two since Moyes has been in there, and I think like we've been all been talking about the narrative of whether it's a player that Moyes fancies to keep permanently. I think now he's probably edged towards not. But in regards to the game against Chelsea, there I completely agree with you. I think he's. I feel sometimes he's a victim of his own success when he comes on the pitch. There, he's got that many multiple facets to his game, and I can sort of there's an allowance there, I think, for a manager to think, you know what, I want to put him here, I want to put him there. But now I think what you've just said, it's becoming quite distinctly obvious that that's where his best position is for us. I think he drives forward when he's got the ball. I think he's always looking in a positive frame of mind when he's trying to get into a game. And that's difficult enough, isn't it, when you're getting thrown on and you haven't played. And when he's doing that, there's a different influence in the side. The side look completely different when he's on the pitch, which is all the more frustrating that he doesn't start games for me. That said, I think he's a raw talent there, which I presume, given what we've seen from Moyes in his time with us and wherever else he's been, he sort of can be quite reluctant, can't he, with players and when he'll play them and where he'll play them. But yeah, I'd like to see him there. I'd like to see him start first and foremost, but I'd like to see him in that position there because I think he's a very intelligent young lad who can find space, he can find positions. I don't know if this is a stereotype or not, but sort of South American players are quite renowned for that in sort of generating space. They're quite quick with their feet. They want to pass and move, and I think with us, that's a work in progress. I think we are. I think we've mentioned a few times how different Everton are looking now, how different David Moyes is as a manager, and he fits that bill. I hope it doesn't feel like it's a little bit after the Lord Mayor's show when we get him and we put him on and we want him to do this sort of thing. Look, we can only speculate as to why he's not in that role and why he's not getting more game time. But I think he's probably one of the first names that should be on the team sheet with that. And that example you've just given there wasn't exactly why I think he should be doing it.
Yeah, and just coming back to you again, Dave, a bit earlier on, myself and Pete, we were talking about sort of the lack of attack and threat and the fact that especially going to one of these clubs like Chelsea, when we go a goal behind, it's almost like the biggest of uphill mountains you have to climb to get back into the game. And I'm just reading in, I know you lads referenced this on Blue Monday as well. It's the 15th time this season that Everton failed to score, which, whilst me and Pete were talking, we were saying about we've got a fantastic defensive record. That is a concern, and that is definitely one that needs to be addressed. I'm sure coming into the coming weeks that we will furthermore on this show discuss the lack of attacking intent and what we need to get from the summer. And I'm sure David Moyes, we know he's not stupid. That's going to be his main priority, to get Everton in more attacking positions where we can score and bring players into that effect to support it. But that is a concern, isn't it? Dave? 15 games this season where we've not scored. That's not good enough, is it?
No, it's not, and I think it's much maligned, isn't it? How critical people have been, and rightly so, of the top three sides that have come up in the last 2 seasons. They've been crap, and in other years when you're seeing a couple of sides that have come up, you are battling up until the latter end of the season to stay in the Premier League. I think with that stat you've just revealed there, that shows you why we're quite fortunate that hasn't happened. That's not to take away what Moyes has done since he came back, which has been, it's been fantastic, isn't it? Really, you look at the record. I think if you were to say, without the context of how Everton have been under Dyche compared to Moyes, if you don't consider that, you think, wow, Everton haven't won many games. You just seem to draw most of them, and don't lose many. And that still feels like that's like the albatross under our neck when we're going to these big games, as you mentioned there. Doesn't seem to have changed at all under Moyes, and I think the creating of chances. I don't. Sometimes I feel when we're in this, the question you just asked there, in a frame of mind that we're in our own little bubble when we go to these places, and I think when you compare that to perhaps when we went to Palace, for instance, when we had a really good performance, went and won that game.
Forest as well,
exactly, and you can probably class Forest certainly this season in that bracket of top sides in the Premier League, and it gives you an example of what Everton are capable of going and doing. But yeah, I think when you're good at defending, and our experience as fans is looking at it, you sort of, managers, I would presume, obsess over that rather than deal with what's going on the other end when you're going away to what is probably going to be a Champions League side, and that has to change. But I don't know, maybe that's too much of an excuse that I've said there about that stat you just gave there. I feel as if Moyes now, particularly when we've reached this end of the season, where there's money up for places, isn't there? And we're down to 14th now, aren't we?
Yes, due to Wolves' win, who've just gone on a ridiculous run to get from where they were to climb above us.
Exactly, and you get to that situation, you're thinking, well, there's still plenty of reason for Everton to get into a decent position, a decent finish, and the way we've known in recent years, like an extra couple of pennies is always worth a lot to us, isn't it? I'm not sure what's going to happen this summer, but you never know with all of this sort of thing, do you? And playing the way we have there, I'd like to see Moyes expanding a little bit, dipping his toe into the water a little bit deeper, to put it in that way. Would I like to see 2 up front? I guess so, because if you're not scoring, you have to try something different. And that's something I've always felt that Everton managers, probably in almost all of my lifetime, the stubbornness is what's got them at certain points in their career with us. And by all means, I'm not saying Moyes is like that, but it does make me refresh my memory to instance we've had like that, where you're not trying something new. You're not just putting one up front. You're not just throwing Beto up front on his own. Look, he should have scored as well. I think it was a decent effort that he had there with that sort of half volley when he hits and the keeper makes a decent save. That's notwithstanding the mistake he made for them to score. But if you've not got a quality striker who's going to bag you at least 10 a season. I mean, when's the last time we had a striker who did that? Probably, I'm guessing Richarlison, who's got 10 or more in a season. When you've got that, referring back to Alcaraz, he probably fits into this conversation. We're getting people in and around and creating chances and having shots on goal. We only had 3 that hit the target, I think, yesterday. That's not good enough, and it's not going to keep you from getting better in the Premier League as much as clean sheets will always get you a point. You need more than that, don't you?
You do, and I think that's going to be the real priority over the summer. I know there's many holes in the squad that need fixing and need filling because there is a lack of depth and a lack of quality in a number of positions. But I think certainly that's got to be one area we have to prioritise in the summer. Pete, it was one of those games for me where the referee was fine. I didn't think there was anything major where I've come away and gone, that's a terrible decision, or you've had an awful game. But once again, Everton always seem to come down to these ridiculous sort of weird decisions. And I'm going to ask you to comment on the Mykolenko free kick. He's been ran into by the Chelsea goalkeeper. And without even hesitation, the referee's given a free kick to Chelsea. I don't know how he's come to that conclusion looking at the replay, because all Mykolenko's done is run. Should Everton have got a penalty for that?
Honestly, I think if it was the other way round, I think we'd all be thinking Jordan Pickford has made an absolute howler. I think Sanchez comes absolutely flying out. As you say, Mykolenko was just looking at the ball. He's not. Mykolenko's slowed down as well. He's adjusted to where the ball is going to be. It's the keeper who comes absolutely flying out and completely wipes out Mykolenko. As I say, if it was the other way around and it was Pickford on a Chelsea player, I think we'd all be thinking, you've put us right in it there. I don't think we could argue if a penalty was given. So yeah, surprised. Didn't seem to be that they even looked at that either. There was another one on Beto as well, which I thought was interesting, where it was just after that. It was after that. It was towards the end of the first half, and again another ball that was sort of played into the box, and it looked like there was a tangle of legs, if you like. And I thought that Beto was clearly taken down, and I think VAR did look at that and cleared it. But yeah, just I'm at the point now where I think probably because of how few penalties we get, and we get so few, not just over this season, but over such a long period of time, I have absolutely no idea what a penalty is anymore. Because the inconsistency in this league is absolutely ridiculous. Because I see penalties like that one given time and time again for other teams. And I'm not just saying it's an Everton thing. I just look at it and think there is such a lack of consistency. There is so much, so much about it is about a referee's personal interpretation of a rule. I just think that, as I say, I have absolutely no idea what is and isn't a penalty anymore, because that one on Mykolenko yesterday, to me, was as clear of foul as you're likely to see.
It was reminiscent of the Forest one, I think, when it was at Yates, I think it was, who ran into who was it he ran into again? You'll have to remind me. It was Alcaraz, wasn't it? He ran into Alcaraz the other week at Forest, and I looked at that keeper one and I thought, I can understand if he's blown the whistle because there's a collision and it's quite a, it looked quite a sore one for both of them. But I also think if that was a central defender rushing out and doing that to Mykolenko, it's a stonewall penalty. And I think the fact that it's a goalkeeper, he sort of afforded that protection, if you like. It was just a weird one. I felt to give that free kick straight away to Chelsea. I just didn't understand where that was coming from. But I thought Mykolenko, talking about him, actually was decent again yesterday. And I think much of our threat came from that left-hand side. But Dave, going forward, we've got the now relegated Ipswich Town next week at Goodison, and again, it's going to be another chance for Everton to maybe get a result, hopefully get a result. But we'll be expecting a result. We all know the countdown's fully on now with these last two games at Goodison, but this is a team that there is a danger there as well, isn't it? That they can come and relax a little bit. I just feel and hope that following the Chelsea game now, we can go in and throw a few more bodies forward, because we just didn't see that yesterday. Well, in the game, did we? We didn't see that against Chelsea. We saw a little bit of pressure second half, which me and Pete were talking about early on. But I'm hoping now going into these next couple of games that we see that. We've got to see that, haven't we?
We absolutely do. I think it's important now, isn't it? You've got to put, no sort of pun intended, but you've got to put a blueprint forward here on what we're going to carry on doing here. And I know people will say you don't really stick with that trail of thought when you're thinking, well, we're not going to be playing another Premier League game for like 2.5 months, and we've still got to sign players, we've still got to mix things about. You've still got to go on all of these tours. Great, we're going to the States and all that. We can try various things, but I just feel if you were to play well if you were to put in a performance that is what we're all standing there at the end of the game saying, that's what I want to see Everton play, that's something that'll stick in your memory the next time Everton go and play the remaining few games in the season, the remaining game at Goodison Park. You go and do that and you think, start the next season, crack on, do exactly what we did there. There's plenty of things, there's plenty of different aspects of this side that we want to continue doing what we've seen them, the ability for them to do. Now, I think, given that they've got relegated already, Ipswich, and it's that. I mean, how many times have you seen it over the years when a side's gone down? I mean, Southampton nearly did it, didn't he, at the weekend? There, they went 1-0 up. I mean, that's why maybe it's the Everton in me, but I'm thinking it wouldn't surprise me if Southampton got a result against us on the last day of the season. But all jokes aside, that should be. I think the motivation should be easily there. The conversation doesn't need to happen for Moyes when they go back into training tomorrow morning or Tuesday or whenever it is they go back in. I think it should be a relatively easy chat. It's an easy, description of what they want to see next week and what he wants to see. The type of manager he is, gets players well drilled. And then the thing I hope that is in his mind is, like you say, to expand things a little bit, to open up, to, I don't know about what you guys think of this, but I was only considering this after the game. When you've got such a solid defence there, who are one of the best in the Premier League, let's face it, I'm not exaggerating there, am I? I think the numbers sort of explain that. Do you feel as if that should raise the bar in the lack of what we're doing in an attacking sense, because we know that level of security is there at the back? Because I don't recall many sides ripping us apart on a counter-attack, and we don't have more possession than them. I was interested with the possession in our game. I think it was 40%, which is quite unusual for us, particularly when you go away from home against one of the better sides in the league. And sorry to go on a bit of a tangent with this, but that's something that I think he needs to address, that level of balance when we're going into games. Now, Ipswich at home, a relegated side, if there's not going to be an occasion to do that, I think, you know what, I don't really need to look at Branthwaite and Tarkowski if he was fit, or O'Brien, whoever it is there in that back four. Pickford takes care of himself. Those lads there, I don't think need any sort of drilling there. The only time they'd be used in training, I would imagine, is when the attack, ironically, are trying to score goals. Because if they can score goals past the back four that we've got, then you think, you know what, we're in business here. Because if we can do that here, we should be able to do it against most Premier League sides. So I want to see that emphasis come in. I want to see that you're properly going for the side by the jugular from the start, though. I feel as if I'm maybe being really critical. People are listening to this thinking I'm being overly critical of Moyes here, but I think I'm just trying to dig a little bit deeper into the kind of manager that we've got since he came back. Because he's had that reluctance, Dither and Dave and all this for various aspects. People have felt when he was given that reputation years ago. And that was put towards the way he didn't make substitutions. It was the David Weir substitution. Everyone remembers all of that sort of thing. And what I was hoping to see from him when he came back is probably the only thing that has let me down, in inverted commas, is not making that emphasis on the team becoming an attacking side. I think I mentioned, and I felt listening back to it several weeks ago when I said, do you know what? We've probably got half a dozen really quality attacking players. Probably gone a bit far there, but players who are able to cross ball, score goals, and pass the ball forward. It's simplicity, isn't it, to be able to play that side of the game. We've got players who can do that. You mentioned Alcaraz, you've got Ndai there. Yes, lacking a striker. Look, we've been through all of these things, but if you're not going to try now, then when are you going to do it? When are you going to look into trying to make this?
For me, Dave, I don't think there's necessarily been a reluctance. I just think we opened with the start of the show on this, myself and Pete. I think he's just got the absolute most he can out of this squad, and I think we lack.
I don't know if I agree with that.
No, I do.
Yeah.
I think just simply have not got the quality going forward. I think there's a few individual players there, but I think we just lack the quality to, and the stats back it up. I mean, you don't go 15 games not scoring if you don't have, if you're a good attacking team. We're not good enough, and I think we've been not lucky, but I think we've been think we're happy that we've been able to compensate the fact that we've had a good defensive base to work from. And I think, that's the theme of this show, really. And I think it's going to be the theme going forward, that we're going to have to address the attacking issues. And I think for me, I'm getting to a point now where I want to see it being, I use the example of maybe when Koeman first come in and we signed 4 number or 5 number 10s, whatever it was. We didn't address the issues that needed addressing, and we haven't been able to address the issues the last few years because of the financial situation. I think what I'd like to see this summer is just those issues being addressed, because it's a bit tiring going to see us now and going 1-0 down and thinking Everton aren't getting back in this, or if we do, it's going to be because we've scored a sneaky goal to equalise, or a scrappy goal, not one that's come from a bit of quality or a bit of free flowing play. So, I mean, even the goal of Forest, as great as that performance was, which I thought was one of our best performances of the season, it's taken us a Forest mistake and, a counter-attack to score. It's not because Everton have created something out of nothing, if that makes sense. So I think that's what David Moyes will be looking to do in the summer. Just final word for you then, Pete. Dave said there about Ipswich and about the fact that, it could be potentially be something like that where, they relax now to a degree. There's no pressure on them because they're down. But Everton have got something to play for, haven't they? They want to be finishing as high as possible. I think that someone was saying the other day the difference between finishing 13th and finishing 16th is something like 11.5 million, which ironically would have got us out the PSR mess that we were in last season. That's the incentive for these players now, isn't it? And it's the incentive for players who've been on the fringes to come in and show Moyes that they can be a part of this squad next year.
Absolutely. And I think one player in particular who I would like to see given a bit of an opportunity in these games is Yusuf Chimiti. I think that he in particular was really unlucky at the timing of his injury at the start of the season, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin being out with Brozier, being out injured. I think Chimiti would have had the opportunity to get a run of games at the start of the season, and the fact that he's now back, he looks like he's getting towards full fitness. I'd like to see him start at least the Ipswich game. I'd like to see him start against Ipswich, I'll be honest with you. I think we need to freshen up that final third. I think that Beto, as much as he tries and as much as of a handful he is, I think obviously we can all see he doesn't have the real quality that you need in the Premier League to play consistently at the top level. I'd like to see what Chimiti's got, what he's made of, and I think that Ipswich gives us a really good opportunity to give him that chance. In fact, the last few games, I'd personally, because at the end of the day, we are going to go out and spend money in the summer. You'd hope that position will be one that we will prioritise. But if we can give Chimiti a chance to maybe show what he's all about, maybe that potentially could save us on having to go out and buy 2 or 3 strikers. That's a position that I'd be looking at anyway. And I think certainly when you need a bit of a spark up front, I think we've seen in the past sometimes a young player coming on in the Premier League and getting his first start, it can give the player that little boost, it can give the crowd that little boost, and yeah, it can, we can reap the rewards, if you like. But I think that's a player who I'd be looking at bringing in, certainly against Ipswich next week.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what does happen. We've got to try and find a way to get goals, especially with a baying and anticipating crowd coming up with these final 2 games of Goodison. But we will leave it there.
Also, while I'm dead quick, sorry to interrupt. I always do this to you.
You do, yeah. You always cut me off, and I'm just about to go into
just as you're about
to show. But go on.
You need to start saying, "Is there anything else, lads?" so basically, Ipswich second to last home game, Goodison Park. Next week, it's the last display for the 1878s. The last display that we're going to do at Goodison Park. We're still after some volunteers, so if anyone sits in any part of the stand and would like to get involved, drop us a DM on Instagram, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called, Facebook, and get involved.
Yeah, please do, because I think
I was going to say sorry again, Warren. You're just going to see Pete.
You too.
You're just going to see Pete walking around Liverpool just with a massive flag above his head with signs on, with adverts on saying, "Come and speak to me."
Over 200 volunteers so far, by the way. over 200
Amazing.
just for this one match.
It's amazing. I think I know I saw the post that the 1878 put out online, just saying about what the plan is and what you want to do. And I think, yeah, anyone listening to this who can help, I think just get in touch, because I think that everyone's all welcome to help if they can, aren't they, Pete? So just get in touch, get involved. And that let's make, like Pete just said there, let's make this last game, or sorry, penultimate game of Goodison against Ipswich, the last one that the 1878 are doing, a real good showing of flags and blue everywhere, which I think, I mean, it's been amazing all season, but it look even better, I think, on that game. And then, obviously we're going into that Southampton game and seeing what the club are doing. So we will leave it there unless these two interrupt me again. My thanks to Pete and my thanks to Dave. Coming up this week on the Blue Room, we'll obviously have all your build up to the Ipswich game. Blue Monday will be back with Dave, Les and Roger. And then the Brilliant Byline will be back with Matt and with Paddy. So look out for all your Blue Room content on wherever you access your podcast or watching us on YouTube. We will leave it there. Have a great week, and we will see you and speak to you next week after the Ipswich game. Up those Toffees.